Msn Weekly will come here in just a few moments, so sit tight. Don't go anywhere. We'll be up here at 8 p.m.
Teammate, their first goal, their first coach. We take great care in making sure their first isn't their last. We're so much more than a soccer class. Come play with us today at kickstarttoddlersoccer.com.
In life, things aren't scripted.
If you're an athlete, we need people like you and translate those skills to officiating.
You can get a lot out of it.
It happens in every town, in every game.
We never have a perfect game, but the rewards always outweigh the negativities.
Granite City Food and Brewery has 2 Michigan locations in Troy and Northville. Serves made-from-scratch food, brews in-house beer, and even has brunch every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. To learn more about their daily specials or to book a private party, visit gcfb.com. Make sure you head over to Granite City in Northville at the corner of 7 Mile and Haggerty, or the Troy location at 16 Mile and I-75.
We like to do it before we go out on the weekend.
We do.
We do it every week.
Whether we need to or not.
We did it today.
It was really dirty.
My parents do it every day.
Hey, kiddo!
Do it every day with the Unlimited Club only at Jack's Car Wash. Protect your car from the hot summer sun, dust, dirt, and contaminants all summer long with the Jack's Unlimited Club.
Join today, starting at just $24.99 a month.
I watch soccer on the Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
لا تنسون تتابعونا على Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I like to watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
Me gusta mirar fútbol en Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I love watching soccer on the Michigan Soccer Network.
How about now? If you could let me know in the comments section if you can hear our sound, I would appreciate it as we work through. Not quite sure why our sound's not coming through. Still no audio? I apologize, guys. I'm not hearing anything either. How about now? Wait. There we go. If you could let me know in the comments section. Okay, I think our audio is now working. So I do apologize for that. Looks like that was weird. I don't know what to say what happened there, but either way, what I was saying in the intro was welcome here into MSN Weekly. My name's Jonathan Turner, and excited to bring you another edition of MSN Weekly. Steve Besk, not here with me tonight. He's at home in his home office. Have not yet to get Steve here in the studio for a live airing, but our hope here is to do so here in the coming days and weeks. A big show, a big week coming up here for MSN as we have a number of great games here coming up here starting tomorrow night as we head out to Plymouth-Salem as they welcome in Plymouth-Canton, or we in this say Salem versus Canton. As I was told earlier today by Steve Best, they don't say Plymouth-Salem or Plymouth-Canton anymore. It's now Salem and Canton, and then you have Plymouth. So, but Salem versus Canton tomorrow night here live on the Michigan Soccer Network at 7 p.m. Eastern is the slated kickoff time. We know that chances are that might not start on time just because of high school and how that works. But nonetheless, excited to bring you that game. Last night we did the high school ranking show here last night, and I will tell you, looking at the rankings top to bottom compared to what we saw last week, not a real big change as far as what we expected. In total last night, we mentioned that there were 35 total changes across the board in regards to each division. 14 in the 11 through or 15 through 11 rankings, and then 10 through 6. And then with just 4 changes in the 5 through 1. But if you didn't have a chance to catch that show last night, I would encourage you to head over after this show on demand. Our ranking shows for the past 4 weeks are currently available in the high school ranking show playlist on our YouTube channel that you're currently watching us on right now. At the bottom of your screen, a lot of things are happening there. Our ticker is going on, talking about things that are happening right now at the Michigan Soccer Network. Also, make sure to take a look at our advertisers. Those advertisers are invaluable to what we're doing here at the Michigan Soccer Network, so we appreciate you checking out what they have to offer. Coming up here in this November is we are bringing a morning show, a soccer morning show here to the network, and it'll be fun. We're excited. I'm excited to get that launched here later next month, in a month and a half or so. But really excited to bring you that show. I mentioned in the opener that maybe you didn't have a chance to hear, and I apologize for that. But if you have comments, please get those comments in. We'd love to hear from you what your questions are in regards to MSN, what your questions are in regards to high school soccer, college soccer, the different leagues that we do cover, and so much more. So put those comments in the comment section down below while you're watching this, and we will bring those to you here on the Michigan Soccer Network. So talking about what's happening right now here, I felt it was important, as we continue down this path of MSN and what our goals are. Our goal each and every time we hit that live button, that record button, is to bring you what we consider to be valuable content. And that content will change from time to time, whether it be with the shows that we're doing right now here live on this air, or what we're doing with our high school ranking show, or the things that are coming up here in the future. With that being said, we also are excited to talk about other types of games and broadcasts that we're going to bring your way here in the near future. We are currently working on a number of opportunities to bring in different guests and different hosts into the studio and to run their shows. Soccer-related content, as we always say here on MSN. And we'll give you more information about that as we get closer, as we get, more in depth with our scheduling and our programming. I want to talk about this Troy Athens game here for a second, coming up on Thursday. As someone that graduated from Troy Athens back in 2000, I know intimately what it's like to be a member of the Athens Redhawks as they go and face an opponent like Troy High. It is Todd Hugh and I had a chance to talk here earlier today. Unfortunately, the audio from that did not pick up, and I can't bring you that interview. But what I can say is from my conversation with Todd Hugh, the head coach of Troy Athens, is he'll say he might be a little biased in this, but arguably, that is one of the best rivalries in the state of Michigan, and I wouldn't disagree with that. Someone that's played on that field and in that environment, I can tell you the things that took place back in the 90s and the early 2000s, a lot has changed in the 22 years since I've graduated from Troy Athens High School, but what I can tell you is that rivalry is still alive and well here in Troy, as hundreds, if not thousands of fans will come out to watch that game on Thursday night, as Troy is a soccer community. And we talked about that with the athletic director, Robert Dowd, who's been at the school for 20-some years, looking to retire here later after end of this school year, talking about how the soccer community in Troy is right now premier in the area, and maybe like things like football, maybe not as important to the community as soccer is. So that's why that particular rivalry really makes sense and really is one of the premier rivalries in the state of Michigan when it comes to soccer. Tomorrow night we're going to be out at Salem versus Canton. That's another one where you talk about three schools on the same campus, and I think Steve could chime into this if he's still in the comments, but he could chime in on this. You've got three different schools on the same campus. You've got Salem, Canton, and Plymouth, and it's one of those things where you think about it. How does that even work? How do you even figure out a way to get that many students, those many athletes, on the field in those environments at the same time? We talked about it with the head coach from Canton here earlier today, Mark, and he was talking about how, just the field battle, trying to get teams onto practice fields in games at the Plymouth High School campuses, as you may call them. Getting them to be able to just find time to practice is very difficult when you have 9 football teams, 9 soccer teams, just different levels playing and trying to buy time on those fields. So tomorrow night we'll be out at Salem versus Canton at the grass field at 7 p.m. On Thursday we'll be out at Troy Athens as they welcome in Troy High. Troy Athens ranked number 8th in the state. They moved up in 2 spots from number 6 in the past week, and Troy High still maintains that number 2 spot at 11-0-0. Troy Athens currently sitting again in that 8th spot, and their current record is 9-3-1. They lost to Grand Blanc here this past weekend, 1-0. One of the better rivalries around that exists at PCEP, the Park as they call it, and the Soccer World Park Cup is on the line tomorrow as Salem has a chance to clinch with a win or a tie. So I don't know much about that cup, to be fair. I do believe that the 3 schools, when they play each other, that can kind of cycle through point-wise, and then ultimately they can they play for this trophy from Soccer World. So but a big rivalry game nonetheless, as where Park Cup is a season-long battle amongst 3 teams, Salem, Canton, Plymouth, and their head-to-head matchups. So thank you, Steve. I appreciate you tuning in and letting me know. I'll break it down tomorrow on air. Well, there you go. And Steve and I will be on the call tomorrow night. Rick Larson and I will be on the call for the Troy Athens game coming up here on Thursday. Just looking at those comments here one more time. Early in the week, we had a chance to touch base with Evan Hunziga and Caden Russell from Goodrich Soccer. They talked about, not talked about, but that we interviewed them in regards to what Caden Russell has done on the field here this year. Not just this year, but across his entire career. We still have that interview, and I want to air that right now. Again, just talking about the amount of goals that he has scored in his career, 95 goals, and just something really, really special, as we'll take a look at that now. All right, now I'm sitting alongside, you're not sitting alongside, but sitting in the Zoom meeting here with Evan Hunziga and Caden Russell from Goodrich Soccer, having a fantastic season, 8-3 overall, 7-0 in conference play. Evan, I want to start with you first. This is your 17th season, with Goodrich. Talk about the season. Talk about what your goals were going into the beginning of the season.
We always set a whole bunch of goals at the beginning of the season. This team wanted to set something related to academics to start with. and then continued with team accountability, which was a huge thing. It wasn't related to wins and losses right off the top, but we certainly, we always want to achieve that, right? But they had good aspirations with the goals that they set for themselves. But yeah, we're off to a really good start at this point.
So talking about that, conference play is something that's really important to a lot of teams. I know obviously the overall record is great, but you're 7-0 right now in your conference. Talk about that and what that means to the school.
We've always been a good competitor in our league in the area, and we've been very fortunate that we have a lot of outstanding individuals as well as players that have helped us be very successful. A lot of buy-in from the team, a lot of learning at practice that is delivered while we go into competition time. We did stumble a little bit at the beginning of the season with the losses that you mentioned, but none of those were big losses. We've only lost games by 1, which has been pretty good for us. We've played all of our non-league schedule thus far has been with ranked opponents, and we're competing with all of them. We had played Fenton in a non-league contest, which is a team local for us that's in our league. Certainly one that we're paying attention to down the road, but we don't pay attention to it yet because we're not there. We just focus on one game at a time and try to tackle those contests as they come.
No question about that. And you're sitting next to a pretty special player in Caden Russell. Caden, you're a senior. We just this past week, you took over let me tell you this. You took over the record for goals scored in a career at Goodrich. Talk about that moment for you, what it means to you as a player at Goodrich.
It was great. I had a lot of experience being captain on the team and leading this team for a long time now, about 3 years. And it was just great to have success pay off and just be able to guide the team into victory.
It's a great response. I mean, from someone that had the single season record last year, 34 goals, a part of the all-state team as a freshman. Now you're on pace this year to, I believe, beat the goal from last season, 18 goals scored in a 5-game span. I mean, great players are surrounded by great players as well. What does the support of your team mean to you in this run of your career goals as well as these single season records?
It means a lot. I mean, it's a 11v11 game, not 11v1. And so you need a team to build off of, and you need a team to play the game.
No, that's fantastic. And, your goal this season, if you were to look at it from a player standpoint, obviously, I know you had the academic side. What is the goal of this team this season as far as you guys move towards the business end of this fall season?
The goal is to go as far as we can, win games.
It's simply simply said. Something we always do here on our network, we try to at least. We love to get, we're a little more casual with some of the things that we do. We like talking about food during our live broadcasts. So, Kate, if I were to ask you what your favorite food is, your go-to meal, what would that be?
Probably pizza.
Pizza. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, and if you had a go-to candy, what would that be?
Like dessert or like?
I mean, if you got to have it in your hand, what would it be?
Probably some kind of ice cream.
Some kind of an ice cream. Okay, fair enough. Okay, and Coach, what about you?
Oh man, I definitely like Reese's peanut butter cups for going candy style, but I'd have to agree with Caden. I'd go pizza, man. That's for sure.
Well, very, very cool. Evan and Caden, thank you very much for joining us here on the Michigan Soccer Network. We appreciate it. We wish you guys the best of luck the rest of your season.
Thank you for having us.
So that was, Evan Hunzinga and Caden Russell from Goodrich High School. Again, just talking about Evan and what they're doing at Goodrich. They're 8-3 was their record going into our interview here this week. 7-0 in conference play. You talk about 34 goals last year was with a single season record for Goodrich, and Caden broke that, and he broke the high school career goals record here last Tuesday. In a game where he scored 5 goals. So you think about that. He's doing phenomenal work as a player and student at Goodrich, and excited that we had an opportunity to bring him into our broadcast for you and for Goodrich. So good luck the rest of the way to them. But we want to continue down this path of if you've got something, comments or questions pertaining to the game of soccer here in the state of Michigan. Get those questions or comments in now. We'll talk about that throughout the show here tonight. We're going to talk about some exciting things that are happening here in the next couple of weeks on the Michigan Soccer Network and so much more. But don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll dive into some more things in regards to soccer. But you are watching MSN Weekly right here on the Michigan Soccer Network.
Their first ball. Their first uniform. Their first number. Their first teammate. Their first goal. Their first coach. We take great care in making sure their first isn't their last. We're so much more than a soccer class. Come play with us today at kickstarttoddlersoccer.com.
Granite City Food and Brewery has 2 Michigan locations in Troy and Northville. Serves made-from-scratch food, brews in-house beer, and even has brunch every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. To learn more about their daily specials or to book a private party, visit gcfb.com. Make sure you head over to Granite City in Northville at the corner of 7 Mile and Haggerty, or the Troy location at 16 Mile and I-75.
In life, things aren't scripted.
If you're an athlete, we need people like you and translate those skills to officiating.
You can get a lot out of it.
It happens in every town, in every game.
We never have a perfect game, but the rewards always outweigh the negativities.
Back here into our MSN studios as, sorry, our volume on this is, on my viewing tablet is really high, so my apologies to that. But either way, welcome back here into MSN studios here, MSN Weekly. My name's Jonathan Turner, bringing you all the excitement here on this Monday evening as we dive into all things soccer here in the state of Michigan. This past week, the Michigan Soccer Central, Robert Kerr had a conversation with Gold Star and what Gold Star FC and what they're bringing to NISA here in the coming year, so to speak, next year with the NISA kicking off in March. My question for you is Detroit City FC is right now the benchmark for soccer in the state of Michigan at the professional level, right? You know, we could talk about from there where it goes, right? Michigan Bucks, or the Flint City Bucks, as they are called now. I would say that's where the next level, as far as you talk about history in the state of Michigan at that level. It'd be Detroit City FC and then be the Flint City Bucks. And there's a whole bunch of other teams all trying and fighting for what would be considered to be in the upper echelon of soccer. You know, you can maybe start talking about like some of these newer squads, these newer indoor leagues and futsal leagues that are happening all across the state of Michigan. But I'm curious what your thoughts are in regards to these new NISA teams. The Michigan Stars, I don't know if that would put them in that same category as a Detroit City FC or Flint City Bucks. But Gold Star FC now joining NISA here for the upcoming season in 2023. They mentioned that they're going to be breaking ground on a stadium here in the next 2 months. They dropped off some teasers about what they might be doing. There's some word that it might be happening in Livonia. Don't know all the details yet, but I'm curious your thoughts on what's happening right now in the soccer community across the state of Michigan. It is very fragmented, to say the least. A lot of options to watch soccer at a semi-professional level here in Michigan. We've talked about it, Steve and I, many times here during our broadcasts. We've been asked the questions about what leagues are the most competitive. You start talking about USL2, which, again, the Flint City Bucks, as well as Oakland County FC and a number of other programs across the state of Michigan are a part of. But the question is which of those is the one that you would want to put your team into? You start talking about professional soccer, the USL Championship, which Detroit City FC is a part of, and then you've got NISA, which is below that. I'm just curious what your thoughts are about this new franchise, this new franchise based out of we don't know where yet in Gold Star FC, and where they'll be playing their games at. So I'm just curious, what's going on with that and what their thoughts are, and your thoughts are in regards to this new expansion team coming out in NISA, especially with what we know what's going on with NISA and the struggling teams and being able to stay afloat during the current situation that we're all seeing. You're seeing teams having a hard time paying the bills and keeping their teams being able to even play in that league. So I'm curious how NISA is going to even be portrayed and be competitive, going into future seasons. As Steve Besk, for any startup club in our area, what do you think that the club should prioritize first, become an attraction, game day atmosphere, talent level? It's a great question, Steve. And to be fair, you think about what the atmosphere is at like a Detroit City FC game, right? You look at that and the game day experience is nothing. I mean, I've been to an MLS game. I've been to a Detroit City FC game. I've been to UPSL games and Midwest Premier League games. I've been to a lot of these games, and the atmosphere in itself is something that I would say is hard to compete with if you're a Detroit City FC fan or even a fan of the game of soccer in general, right? So just looking at the game and looking at the atmosphere that is happening at a Keyworth Stadium on a week in and week out basis, what are they going to have to do? They're going to have to really put a lot of time and effort into building a supporters group that actually makes sense. For those of you that don't know how Detroit City FC started and got their start, it wasn't the way that Gold Star FC or even the Michigan Stars started their pathway. They started it with a bunch of guys, just a group of friends wanting to, play some soccer, be competitive as best they could. And then ultimately, what did they do? They turned this thing into an amazing product that has, multi-million-dollar growth. It is something that you will never, at least I don't believe you'll ever be able to replicate ever again. And that's my personal opinion, and I know we'll bring in Dan Stickrat here in a couple minutes to talk about maybe his thoughts on that. But it's going to be tough. I mean, there's a lot of soccer you can watch here in the state of Michigan. There's a lot of soccer you can watch, in Romeo, just down the road from us at Romeo High School. The Michigan Stars play their home games. Oakland County FC. Everybody is competing for a very big pie, but has a lot of pieces in it. And I just don't know how a startup can really compete when you have the community engagement that you do out of a club like Detroit City FC and the Northern Guard, right? I mean, they do a fantastic job. The only other team that we have seen since we started covering these live games over the past year would be Lansing Common, with the community engagement that they have with their supporters, the amount of traveling that they're willing to take in that Midwest Premier League that they're currently a part of. I would tell you, it's just, I don't know. I just don't see how this new expansion club is really going to be able to be competitive with getting the people in the stands. But hey, I could be wrong, and I'm okay with that. So we'd love to talk laws of the game. If you could change or modify any rule or law, what would you change? That's. I am not a big fan of this new system where the ball hits the referee. It's a drop ball. I'm not a big fan of that rule at all. That law, I think, is a silly law. I understand the idea behind it. If I had to change any law, that's a good one. That is a good one. I mean, I tell you what, I do not like the new goal kicks. I don't like the idea of these short goal kicks. I actually think that it actually is a detriment to a lot of really weak teams who just because they can't maybe kick the ball as far, they play it short and then another goal is scored. I personally don't like that at the youth level. I think that needs to go. As far as that's concerned, I mean, I think we've overcomplicated a lot of laws in the game of soccer. I think that like looking at handling and looking at offsides and looking at those laws in general, I think we've really made it difficult for anyone, the average fan, to really truly understand how those laws work, how they're interpreted, and more importantly, how they're applied during a game. That's my opinion in regards to that. We did talk about Gold Star. Yes, we did, Danny Garrett. But tell you what, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We come back, we'll talk about Gold Star. We'll talk about some of the questions that Steve asked, and we'll get you some more information here. So don't go anywhere. You're watching MSN Weekly right now on the Michigan Soccer Network.
Their first ball, their first uniform, their first number, their first teammate, their first goal, their first coach. We take great care in making sure their first isn't their last. We're so much more than a soccer class. Come play with us today at kickstarttoddlersoccer.com.
Welcome back here into MSN Weekly. I'm now joined by guess who? Dan Stickrat. Dan, we were kind of laughing a little bit about this early. Well, actually, I think you were more like crying. The fight that we have with technology in today's world, as easy as it is that life has been made easier for us with technology, we also find that with technology comes a lot of stress.
Just a little bit. Let's just leave it at
that. So, Dan, welcome here into the show. So, the question that came up from Steve Besk was, and I talked about Gold Star FC, is, can Gold Star FC, be able to deliver on the promise that they're going to create a game day experience second to none, which they did during the Michigan Soccer Central podcast here last week. I don't know.
Yeah, there's so many teams that have kind of come out of the, from the ground level up really in the last 20, 25 years across the state of Michigan. We see them every year. More and more men's and women's team kind of come to the forefront. It doesn't happen overnight.
No.
I mean, Detroit City has started at the grassroots. It was less than 20 years ago. Look, they have great crowds, great atmosphere now down in Hamtramck. Flint City Bucks, which used to be the Michigan Bucks, they've bounced around to different cities over the years, but even though they've won multiple national championships, they got to the North American semifinals back in July this year again. Their crowd attendance is up and down. It's not. It hasn't been steady, and they play right now in the Atwood Stadium, at the historic stadium up there, and it's kind of a cool atmosphere, much like in Hamtramck at Keyworth Stadium. It's the old flavor, but it works. But they just don't seem to draw as consistent. They'll have a good crowd one game, and the next day they don't. But again, there's so many teams in Grand Rapids, Lansing, around the Detroit area. So promising to have out of the gate atmosphere. I don't know. I don't think it's.
I think it had to be free, and I think you'd have to give everybody there an iPad. I mean, being realistic, I don't know how in today's world you can even say that. I mean, I've been to a Columbus Crew game here back at the new stadium back in August when we covered the UPSL finals, and I mean, 22,000 people were in that stadium, something like that. Some full packed house. I mean, you just can't beat that. Keyworth Stadium, the food trucks and the atmosphere that they have there with the train in the background. I mean, even Taylor Twellman got involved in that back a couple of months ago in regards to that. I mean. You want to applaud anyone for trying to grow the game of soccer. So the last thing that I want to do is be like a naysayer and saying, hey, Gold Star FC, is it going to be able to deliver on maybe the product on the field? Because I actually think the product on the field is probably easier to accomplish than what they're talking about from the community standpoint. Because even as Danny Gare's talking about it right now, you're talking, they don't want them in Livonia. There's a Livonia team in the Midwest Premier League. It's called Livonia City FC, right? It's not professional. It's semi. They play their games at Madonna. It's a good organization. Hey, I mean, is it to the level of NISA? Of course it's not. But these are college kids coming back during the summer that want to be competitive, and then at the end of the summer they go back and they play at their college teams. And that's what the Midwest Premier League, that's what the UPSL, for the most part, was really kind of designed for, the amateur level. Now you start talking professional. That's a whole nother level. There's a reason why the MLS did not work out here this past year, and the last couple of years, and it had nothing to do with fanfare. I don't believe it has anything to do with the amount of fans in the state of Michigan that like soccer and love soccer. It has everything to do with trying to figure out a way to make something work with all the politics that are involved, the financial aspect of this, dealing with the leagues. There is so much at stake in regards to that, and then you look at NISA, which has been struggling financially for the better part of 3 years now. Teams that are in the beginning of the season can't afford to get their teams out to their away games and having to cancel and forfeit games and basically going under. And now you have a team that's in Gold Star FC that's now only going to be the second team in Michigan in NISA?
Yeah, and I think what it boils down to is I think everybody in Michigan wants to someday, and we've been praying for this for over a quarter century now, to have an MLS team in the state of Michigan. And there's, like I said, there's been so many amateur teams, semi-pro teams, small pro teams that have popped up. They all want to draw fans. They all want to sell merch. They all want to do everything. They want to put a quality product on the field. But at the end of the day, is it oversaturated in Michigan? I've thought about this, quite a few times. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, because certain teams are drawing well and certain teams aren't.
Yeah, but you look at what these teams are all about. I don't. When I look at the UPSL, and me and Steve and our network is covered. I can't tell you how many UPSL games. I can't tell you. I mean, we've covered Midwest Premier League. To charge $10 to an amateur game at the UPSL level in the Midwest Premier League, into a game like that, to be honest with you, seems way over the top. Because even the Detroit City FC tickets are like $12.
Yeah.
I mean, and the product on the field, we can argue about the product and how much faster or quicker the game might be. But you're talking about a team that's legitimately in the USL Championship. It's one step below the MLS, right? And yeah, it's crazy because I feel like Detroit City is our pathway to an MLS team, right?
I think a lot of people would agree with that.
But I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong here. Right now, the reason why Detroit City FC did not, or the MLS team did not work out, because I think that Dan Gilbert wanted Detroit City FC, and he wanted that team to make their way there. But the ownership group at Detroit City FC wanted nothing to do with moving in with those types of ownership groups. They want to do it on their own. I think they want to build their nest egg here, this great community, and build this infrastructure that one day when they come knocking, the MLS comes knocking, it's Detroit City FC, and it's their team. It's not some makeshift or whatever.
Yeah, and it goes back to the part about the facilities. Remember a few years ago they were talking about they started to build that jail downtown there near the stadiums, near Comerica Park and Ford Field, and there was talk about, well, maybe get an MLS team and play at Ford Field, or maybe build a soccer/lacrosse stadium where the jail site was, and all that never worked out for various reasons. So, here we are. We're still without a MLS team, and I think what could have happened if they keep, building Detroit FC, down the road. But right now, we're one of the bigger markets in the country, and we've watched markets half the size. I mean, what is there in the Detroit area in like 7 or 8 counties? Almost 5 million people live in the city and suburbs, and we still don't have an MLS team, and MLS started 1996.
We are the largest market, a media market in the country that does not have an MLS team. And again, we can talk about all the politics, and that's why I was saying the politics in all of this is part of it. But I truly believe. I look at it like this. Dan Gilbert's got gazillions of dollars, right? I don't. This was, to be honest with you, I don't think it's a money thing. I think it came down to pure and simple that the only pathway right now in this state is Detroit City FC. Back in the day, we could argue it was the Bucks, right? Back in the day, the Mid-Michigan Bucks, at that time they called Mid-Michigan Bucks, right? And Dan Duggan, they were a big part of trying to get an MLS bid here in Michigan, and it never panned out because at that time it required you'd have like 10,000 season ticket holders or some crazy number that just they struggled to get. But Danny Garrett says, honestly, I don't think the MLS needs to be the ultimate goal. Well, here's the thing. As long as there's no promotion/relegation in the United States, and we've talked about this before, I think, during broadcasts, is I don't believe that promotion-relegation in the current state of the United States makes any sense. Financially, you're talking about, I mean, if you think about what's happening over in Europe and in England and those leagues, even the smaller leagues, they have stadiums that have 5,000, 7,000, 8,000. They have an infrastructure. They have a following that goes with those teams. If the UPSL, for example, or the Midwest Premier League was part of the tiered system of promotion relegation, some teams are playing their games in high school stadiums. That would not work in our environment. You cannot have a high school stadium as a professional venue.
No, and that's where most of you look at this, like the semi-pro, the college-age kids when they come home for the summer. Most of them are played at high schools.
Yeah.
There are some beautiful high schools in Michigan, don't get me wrong,
Fantastic
that can fit 5, 7, 8,000 people, but that's not what you want in terms of a professional team. People want to see a soccer facility.
Yep.
Columbus Crew, what does that hold, 25,000 people?
Something like that.
Yeah, I've been to a couple games down there in the last 15 years, but it's a nice setup. We just don't have that. In Columbus, you can drive from downtown Columbus 15 miles away and you're in cornfields. In Detroit, the suburbs go out 40 miles out. Yeah. So the people are here. And there's a lot of soccer population around the state, like pockets of fans that I think would support an MLS team if we ever cross those bridges to get there.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that Detroit, do you think that an MLS team here is viable? I do. I think that it's extremely viable. And for whatever reason, we just haven't been able to find a way to get one here. And the reason we brought this up and talking about this is because of Gold Star FC, which is this new expansion team that's joining NISA this year. They'll be the second team in Michigan in NISA. I don't think there's any others. All the other NISA teams have gone to the wayside or leveled up, so to speak, right? With Detroit City FC going from NISA to USL Championship. I mean, if you're asking the original ownership group of Detroit City, 20 years ago when they first started this thing, was MLS, even in the conversation? Of course it wasn't. But now, where do you go? Because in Keyworth, to be fair, it's a great environment, and it's got that old school, historical aspect to it. But you can't keep playing your games there long term. That's not that you. I mean, you just can't. I think it's great, and it's great for the community. And maybe as as Detroit City grows with their youth teams and with their second team, that becomes a viable option, I think, for your second team, right? But you've got to find a home, that is, it's going to have better seating. Maybe, just you got to find a better home. And I'm curious what people's thoughts are about that. You know what I mean? Like if Keyworth is really the long-term home of Detroit City FC.
Well, you take a sport like baseball. You have AAA, AA, single A, and then you have independent leagues. And they have a lot of these stadiums are 5, 10, 15,000 people. The atmosphere, if you've ever gone to a minor league baseball game somewhere in the country, the atmosphere is great.
Yeah.
But they have nice stadiums. They're baseball stadiums. They were built for a minor league baseball team.
Like Jimmy John's down
exactly.
there.
We got
but I don't think I see 15. I think it might only seat like 10. I don't know how many.
No, I think it's a little bit less. But there's one in Traverse City. There's one in Midland. There's one in Grand Rapids. There's one in Battle Creek. There's one in downtown Lansing, the Lansing Lugnuts. But great atmosphere. But these are baseball stadiums.
Yeah.
And the baseball, system has been around for over 100 years with the way their minor leagues are set. And, soccer in the U.S. has slowly built up these tiers over the last, probably quarter century. But, where do we go from here? We don't have a stadium that would seat like 20 to 30,000 people that you would have a soccer-only stadium in a major city like Detroit or Grand Rapids. So, down the road, I would love to have an MLS team. Like I said, I've gone down to Columbus to watch a game, but it's just one of those things where we've never been able to get over the hump.
Well, Danny made a point. He goes, Keyworth can pull in nearly 7,000. They actually can get an 8,000 in that place. But every game, you could expand it. I don't know how you expand. The area around that stadium is atrocious to get in and out of. I've been there many, many times. You're trying to find parking there. It's got this great old school feeling to it. And the last thing that I would want to say or do is to say take that away from the city of Hamtramck. That is not my point. But what I am saying is that if the goal is to grow, right? Because let's be fair, to run a USL championship team costs money, right? And you could raise ticket prices, but chances are you raise ticket prices, you're going to see some fluctuation, in attendance possibly, right? The Northern Guard is extremely volatile when it comes to that team, right? They have a huge say in a lot of the things, and when things don't go a certain way, they protest in match, right? So, I mean, you think about that, right? And the growth that you have at that level with just that alone. I feel like they're going to outgrow that space. I think they've already outgrown the space. And what's the next thing for them? And my guess would be is they build themselves a stadium.
Yeah, but at the same time, you don't want to alienate your fans. They have to come up with a way to do this.
Yeah, but again, you think about it and say, well, and then once they build a stadium, let's just say, they build a stadium that's 15, 20,000 people. I mean, now you're getting pretty darn close to an MLS team. Now you're getting pretty darn close. I just don't see how long-term Detroit City can really make Keyworth their long-term viable home. But a comment from Danny Garrett says, let's mention the elephant in the room. The DCFC supporters are extremely anti-MLS, so at some point DC needs to decide what's more important. And to be fair, I do agree with that statement. One of those things is I understand your supporter group, and the Northern Guard is one of the best with what they're able to do. When they create that home field environment, it's second to none. And when you have a Columbus Crew player complaining about how the fans are, or you got George Junkai from Michigan Stars complaining about how the fans are, you're doing something right if you're the supporter group. But you're right, Danny Garrett. At some point in time, the team, even though the supporters are very important, I do feel like you're not going to lose them if you decide to make some choices to get yourself to the next level. You might lose some, you might make them upset, but at the end of the day, if they're truly Detroit City FC supporters, then they're going to find a way to support their team because you're still putting that team on the field every week.
Yeah, and they were talking about here in the messages that maybe Detroit doesn't want a team, come through Hamtramck or anywhere. Then what avenue is the state of Michigan going to take to get an MLS team? If that's the best route, that's where the best crowds are, the best foundation to keep moving up the ladder to get to that point one day. If they decide that's not what they want to do, then where's it going to come from?
Well, I'll tell you this right now. You do not want to be the Detroit City FC team that lets an MLS team come in when you had the opportunity and now you lose. Because I'm telling you this right now. I don't care how much support you give Detroit City FC. If there's another game being played at the exact same time, 20 minutes away, that sees 20,000 people, it's got everything inside the stadium, state of the art, whatever. I find it hard to believe that people are going to be going to that game compared to the game that's at that stadium.
Yeah, I agree.
I just don't see it. So, I mean, unless it's like in Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids is not a market for the MLS. The market is right here in Metro Detroit. So whether it be in Oakland County, whether it be in downtown Detroit, off of one of those, somewhere on that side of town, you're going to be competing. And Detroit City does not want to be in that situation.
No, and if you look at metropolitan areas, let's just take the Midwest. Obviously, Chicago has an MLS franchise. Columbus, which is much smaller than Detroit, has an MLS franchise. But Grand Rapids, too small. You go down to Indiana, like Fort Wayne, too small. Toledo, too small. I mean, Cincinnati is bigger, Cleveland's bigger, Pittsburgh's bigger. But relatively speaking, those metropolitan areas, you put them next to like a Detroit or Chicago, and they don't compare in terms of size of the area, population of the area. So when you look at that, Detroit is definitely a place I think the MLS would probably want to have a team here at one point or another.
Then it goes, it's in Livonia. Again, I don't know what location. To be fair, I think you could get away with putting a team out in Livonia because now the pull that you're going to get from an Ann Arbor or Lansing for your games, that can be big, right? Because when you think about what the professional teams here in Michigan for the last 25 years, the Lions were out in Pontiac, right? The Pistons were out at the Palace of Auburn Hills. Right. So they were teams outside of Metro Detroit. They were a little further north, and we were still able to get a good draw from all across Metro Detroit. So I don't think that you can go west toward Livonia. I just don't know if that makes a lot of sense from the standpoint of calling them a Detroit team. But again, not taking away from your idea, Danny. I feel like right now with the way things are going with the Metro Detroit, specifically Detroit, if you put a team in Detroit where let's be fair. I mean, the people moving down to Detroit are younger. The crowds that are at these MLS games are a much younger crowd, right? And this team would have to be, an MLS team would have to be somewhere within 10 miles of downtown Detroit. That's where my thought process is. I'm not sure what yours is.
No, but I think most professional franchises, and if you look at baseball, football, basketball, hockey, majority of these things are in the city itself, and most of them are within a couple miles of a downtown business district. So if we ever get an MLS team in the state of Michigan, I would figure it'd have to be somewhat close to downtown Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
Putting it out in Auburn Hills, Livonia, Brighton, Rochester, Troy, Dearborn, wherever, you're too far away from the heart of it all. I just don't think that would work. I mean, you're more likely to find a piece of land way out in the suburbs to actually build a stadium if we ever get to that point.
Well, the old state fairgrounds. I mean, I'm not sure those are still. I just drove down there not too long ago. There's still like some space there. I mean, in Columbus, the old stadium is right on the state fairgrounds in Columbus. That's the old stadium. The new stadium is in downtown Columbus. I mean, it's right outside of downtown. So, it's again, you think about what this crazy how this conversation went to this, but I just don't. I don't see a viable option for Michigan when it comes to MLS. It doesn't lead through Detroit City FC, and that's how I look at it. And I think that Detroit City FC what they have accomplished and what they have done cannot be replicated across any sport at any level
because in less than 20 years, this is where they're at. It's been a great,
it's self-funded. I mean, you have it's just what they've been able to do is just unbelievable, and I just think that if you're in that. I'm not part of those Detroit City FC meetings and rooms and ownership group things, but I'm sitting there going, man. You don't want there to be a Dan Gilbert opportunity where he now brings a team in and you're the one going, oh crap, like we didn't get that,
because your crowds might suffer long term, and then you're going to realize that an MLS team is here. Let's say one happens in 5 years, it is here. then they are stuck being considered like a minor league team.
Yeah, and again, unless that, because right now the #1 team in the state of Michigan when it comes to soccer at professional level, and to be fair, I think it's Detroit City FC.
Across the state,
There's nobody else even close. And with what they've been able to accomplish in the U.S. Open Cup, beating the Columbus Crew this past year, they've made it into the USL Championship playoffs in their first year. Still trying to fight for that top 4 seed where they get home field advantage for one of the games. I mean, so there's, what they've been able to accomplish is nothing short of miraculous. And I just think that for them, if not knowing what their goals are, if their goal is to continue to grow, it's continue to level up, so to speak, in order to pay for a USL Championship player, the caliber of player that you want to compete for championships at a level, you're going to have to find a way to do that. I was just talking with Robert Kerr about this. He's like, from what he understands is based on the revenue, is that like when it comes to ticket sales, they sell more tickets than most USL Championship teams across the country in the league, but they make the least amount of money off those ticket sales because they sell them for so cheap. So something's going to have to give there, right? Sometimes it's quantity
kind
over
of a common ground,
yeah,
so to speak.
Yeah. So it's one of those things they're going to have to figure that out, and I truly believe that the pathway for us in this state and in MLS would be eventually right through Detroit City FC. So, but a great conversation to say the least. It all started because of what I was mentioning about Gold Star FC, this expansion club that's joining NISA. NISA is a league that, from my opinion, I have not covered a NISA game to this point, but from my opinion, based on everything we've heard about NISA, is that's a league that is struggling right now here across the country.
Yeah, and like I said, you have so many teams that have popped up over the years. I just wonder if there isn't going to be a point where there's oversaturation.
Yeah.
Because you have not just men's soccer, but women's soccer, and you have, Division I and Division II below the MLS. You have the PDL, which is now the League Two, USL League Two. I mean, there's a lot of teams, and there's got to be 30, 40 teams around the state of Michigan at various levels. Is that enough? Should there be more? Should there be less?
I think that we're going to find out here, pretty quickly how fragmented and how saturated the market is. We're seeing it in club soccer right now.
Yeah.
We're seeing it at the club level right now, where clubs are consolidating, they're merging. I believe that at some point in time we're going to see the same thing happening with a lot of these teams. We got a question. How do you feel about Stevenson? So, the question that I have is, which Stevenson? There's a couple Stevensons. There's Livonia Stevenson. There's Sterling Heights Stevenson. Are there any other Stevensons across Michigan?
No, not spelled that way.
Just those two. Okay, so
there's a Stevenson in the Upper Peninsula, but it's spelled differently, and it's a Class C high school, and they do not have soccer. So
I'm curious what Stevenson that you are talking about. So, that would be helpful for us. But when it comes to Sterling Heights Stevenson, I know some information about them. Oversaturation is good, problem to have, means the demand is out there for soccer. Yeah, I don't know if that's true, by the way, Sterling Heights Stevenson. I don't know if that's true. And the reason why I say that is I think from a playing standpoint, from a straight-up playing standpoint, I think that players will always you'll always probably find players, okay? I think you'll find players from all different walks, right, and just different paths. And so you'll always have an opportunity for players. But then it becomes, if you're a team that's trying to turn this into a revenue stream, right, where you're selling tickets and you want people to come into your gates and you want them to buy merch from you, right, the market will be oversaturated. That is, you just, again, you're seeing with Oakland County FC. Oakland County FC, again, they're right in the smack dab in Royal Oak right now, but between them, you've got teams in Lansing, you've got teams over in Detroit. I mean, you have all these teams. You got Flint. All of them are trying to get people to come to watch their games. Flint City Bucks, to be fair, I love the Flint City Bucks, but they moved from Auburn Hills, Pontiac, up to Flint. I feel like that was probably one of the worst decisions they could make because your fan base is here. Your fan base was here in Pontiac and Oakland County, and now you're getting them up to Genesee County. And to be fair, they're not getting the fans that they deserve. So, and they're a team that's been around for close to 30-some years.
Yeah, they started in, I want to say, 1994, 1995. They started in Saginaw, then they moved back. They moved down to Detroit. They bounced around a lot of different high schools. They played games in Livonia and Plymouth Canton area. They played some games at Stony Creek and Rochester. They moved around. Then they finally got into the Ultimate Soccer Arenas when that opened up in 2007, 2008. They played there through 2018. Then they moved to Flint. But other than their national championship game in 2019, when they had like 7,000 or 8,000 fans, you know, they've been averaging less than 1,000 people per home game. I've covered the Bucks personally for over 20 years, and it's a great product. Like I said, they've won 4 national championships. They've been runner-up North American twice. They got to the semis 2 other times, including this year. But their crowds, it's not consistent. You know, other than really Detroit City FC, I don't think anyone's drawing those big of a crowd consistently. They might have a game here or there where they have a good crowd for various reasons. They might have a, you know, this kind of ticket night, a youth night, whatever the case is. But in terms of drawing consistently, and I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 fans, you know, per home game, it's not happening anywhere else except for Keyworth Stadium and Hamtramck.
Yeah, it's a great point, and again, it's nothing. I love the Flint City Bucks. I've called a number of games for them on their network. You know, I love going out there and being a part of a USL2 match, and so they deserve more of a crowd. You know, and unfortunately, the Flint City area just isn't a prime area for the soccer that they deserve fans to come to. So it's an uphill battle, and maybe with more time. Maybe with more being in that area, they'll get the crowds that they want. But again, their fan base was all here, and when you move 40 miles away from your fan base,
you're not having a lot of the fans that used to go to the Bucks. A lot of them aren't making road trips 12 times a summer to downtown Flint.
Yeah.
Atwood Stadium, it's a cool atmosphere. If you've ever been up there for a high school football or soccer game or for a Bucks game, it's a great atmosphere, but their crowds, again, are very erratic.
Very erratic, to say the least. So press for OT said Sterling Heights, Stevenson, and then Danny Garrett goes, well, there's only one Stevenson.
Now we're going to get into that debate.
Livonia. So we've seen Sterling Heights Stevenson 3 times this season. They've got a number of phenomenal players on their squad. Nick Nicola is a phenomenal athlete that we've seen, a junior captain, scored a number of goals from this season. I think he's got 11 goals so far this season, from what Dan Shun mentioned here last night during our broadcast. But yeah, I think they're a pretty good team. I think, looking at their record, they've got some games under their belt. Dan mentioned it last night. They've got some tough games ahead of them this week, and but overall, I think Sterling Heights Stevenson is a really good team. So to answer your question, yes. Sterling Heights Stevenson is a pretty good side. Now, on Livonia Stevenson, I haven't seen them this year. I don't know how good or bad they are.
Well, they're in second place in their conference,
there
the
you go.
KLAA East, behind Dearborn Fordson. We debuted the week 4 of the high school rankings last night. And Stevenson's Livonia Stevenson's one of the most, historical programs in state history. I mean, dating back to the late 1970s, Stevenson always pumps out talent. I don't even know if they've ever had a losing record. I can't ever recall Stevenson finishing below 500. Correct me if I'm wrong. Someone out there might say so, but it's a lot different now. Soccer, we were talking about it oversaturating on the semi-pro and amateur level. We have over 500 high schools now with soccer in the state. I mean, we have 15, 20 schools in the Upper Peninsula have soccer. I mean, it's great. I love the fact that you are having small charter schools and little Christian schools. Rural communities are adding soccer left and right. It has not stopped growing. I mean, over 40 plus years. But high school soccer, some schools draw great. Some don't draw hardly anything at all.
Yeah, no, it's great. So a question just came in from Santiago Mata from FC Berlin. First off, Santiago, man, thank you for joining us. We appreciate the comment. Santiago's asking, what are your thoughts on the UPSL Michigan division this season? We've only had a chance to cover 2 matches. Inter-Detroit matchup against Allianz FC here a couple Saturdays ago. United West FC versus Detroit United back about just over a month ago. The UPSL in Michigan is a pretty competitive league. I mean, looking at the standings right now, Cedars FC currently sitting in first with 3 wins, but then there's FC Berlin right behind them with 2 wins and 2 draws. Inter Detroit at 2-1-1. They're currently sitting in 3rd place. Detroit United, which has been in 3 of the last 3 UPSL Midwest finals here this past, they're sitting currently in 4th place. And then you've got Chantilly Forever, a brand new club based out of Ontario, playing most of their games, I believe, in Port Huron. Shabib Al Yemen, Allianz FC, AIM, and United West FC kind of round out that bottom 4. There's 9 teams in this fall division. There were 10 in the spring. Your club is Inter Detroit, right? I can't remember. No. The comment section is getting
it's blowing up.
But
are these teams drawing? I haven't been to any of these their home games.
Inter Detroit. So Allianz FC and Steve, if you want to chime in on this, you've had a chance to see what an Allianz FC game is like. They play their games out in the old ballpark at Corktown. I mean, they were drawing 500 to 800 fans to every one of their home games. And they're a mainly Hispanic team playing in Southwest Detroit, where the Hispanic population is tremendous and unbelievable. And they had food trucks and they had live music. It was just a really, really cool atmosphere. So Allianz FC, as far as all of the UPSL Midwest East teams in the in the spring, there's no one that came close as far as what they were able to do as far as atmosphere and following. I don't know if you were to ask the Allianz FC fan at the games, I think they were there. They weren't necessarily there per se for their team, but more for the whole atmosphere of the game. I think as Allianz continues to get better and over time, I think they'll be there more for the actual game environment than anything else. So
you mentioned Southwest Detroit, so to go back to what we were talking about with an MLS team in Detroit one day. Southwest side of Detroit does have a large Hispanic population, a large Arabic population, a lot of Middle and Eastern European population down there.
Yeah.
Would that be an ideal place to build a stadium? I don't know. You ask some people comment on that. I mean,
you're talking about over by like where the old ballpark is.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think, to be fair, I think if you were not to bulldoze that park, but because there's already condos there. But I mean, there's a great area. I mean, there's a lot of places to build a ballpark. I think anywhere within either the southwest side of Detroit there, or that northwest side across over 75 there. I think that all those would work as far as building a stadium. But again, you got to have it comes down to money, right? It comes down to a lot of things. Allianz is a class team. They have a great match and day and good owners, and they do. We've had a chance to have great discussions with them. And Allianz FC, I'll tell you, they run a good ship. I mean, they're the only team that we came in contact with in the year and a half that I've been doing this. They gave us a game day agenda of what's to happen right after kickoff, and they followed it to a T. So they provided us with rosters on time. And with plenty of time for us to make sure we have what we needed in order to get things done. So you always got to be like, that's great news, right? So, but no, it's a great point. And if we talk about this league, looking at where it's at, you're 4 games into a 10-game season. Cedars FC currently in that first spot. They won the spring league and the final. Over Detroit. So Detroit United won the league, and then they lost in the finals to Cedars FC in the 8th round of PKs. So
is the UPSL, and correct me if I'm wrong, are they the only league in Michigan that has a fall season in terms of semi-pro and amateur?
They are. They're the only ones that bring a fall season. Midwest Premier League starts theirs in like late May, early June, and that concludes in July. And then the UPSL, along with the UWS 1 and 2, they start theirs obviously in late May or May end of June, early July. The UWS 1 does have a playoff. And they don't, but they do not have a spring fall season. So the UPSL is the only one that has a fall season. Now MYSL, right, or MUSL, those leagues. That's our MUSL, and maybe
See, there's so many leagues.
I know there. MUSL, and then you've also got what do you call it? There's the not MS something. There's like another division of men's amateur soccer.
And then we got USL League 1 and League 2,
yeah,
which
USL,
is college
but
players
those,
coming home for the summer.
Those end in August,
right?
First couple weeks of August, right? But they all come to an end in the summer. So, but a great question by Santiago Amato. We do appreciate you tuning in. What else you got for us on here this evening? This Monday evening as we get closer to wrap this thing up. I mean, Dan, you came in late. But I got this thing rolling right at 8 o'clock with no sound, by the way. Don't know what happened there. But so there's a good 30 seconds to a minute of me not even saying a word, talking a lot, but not really hearing a whole much. So what are questions you got for us here on this Monday evening? I did get if you're noticing here, Dan is wearing our red version of our polo shirt. I'm wearing the black version of our polo shirt. We do have the gray version of this as well. Will be available here at some point in time to, maybe sell
some merch.
Let's see here. Yo, MSN morning show. Hell yeah! Now I won't get anything done at work. That show is coming here in November. It'll be the time slot will be 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Right here on the Michigan Soccer Network. That show is going to be an interesting concept, kind of similar look and feel to what we're doing right now. The goal with that show is to be more casual, to talk about not just things like related to soccer, but bring in a little bit of our personalities in for anyone who's going to be joining me on that show. Personality-wise, talking about the things that are going on in our lives, and really, hopefully, being a little more personable with you guys, more so than we are right now. So, that's what that show's going to be all about coming up here.
Yeah, less than 2 months away.
2 months away. And to be fair, not a whole lot of prep that goes into that show. That's going to be a lot of off-the-cuff stuff. What happened last night in soccer. It's going to launch right before the World Cup starts, so we can use that as a World Cup feeder. Because even though the World Cup's not here in Michigan, how do you not talk about the World Cup on the Michigan Soccer Network?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we're excited the fact that we actually going to have a team at the World Cup. Give us a little bit more to talk about.
And again, if you didn't watch the ranking show last night, rankings are available. We did them out we tweeted them out last night, but watch that show. It's available right now on our Michigan Soccer Network YouTube channel. Just after this show is done, stay with us for a couple more minutes. Go ahead and watch that show in its entirety here after this. So. When is the merch going on the website? My goal is to have merch October 1st. Will be for us on the website. We've got T-shirts already. We got all that. We just got to figure out the final pricing part of this to make sure we're not giving them away and actually making some money. You don't want to give stuff away. I don't want to sell a bunch of T-shirts for nothing. So, got to find a way to make that work. Something I want to say, if you haven't noticed it, it's been on your screen here quite a bit here tonight. So we're gonna talk about it. I just want to make sure I find it, the email, because I have the email. I didn't print it off today. I probably should have did that, but I didn't. But it's in regards to Michigan Referee Committee and our new partnership with them. There has never been a time to become a soccer referee. With flexible hours, increased pay, and the best seats in the house, you can start your journey at MichiganRefs.org. And maybe one day we will see you officiating on the Michigan Soccer Network.
Yeah, we talked about this last night. There is a desperate need, not just for soccer officials, but officials, period, in almost every sport across the board. A lot of these sports, including soccer, have referees that are getting up there in age.
Yeah.
And we have such a massive youth population of people playing club, playing high school, playing academy, playing in college, playing in semi-pro amateur, that know the game. They've played it since they were 5 years old. They need these people to take the classes, suit up, and become officials, because who better knows the game? A parent in the stands who's never played hardly any sport or any sport at all, or someone who grew up in the sport. So there is a definite need for officials.
Something we're going to be making our way up here Friday during the day. I have a golf outing. I have a emceeing on Friday, which is kind of cool. But something that's really, I think is really neat is I'm going to have a chance to follow referees at State Cup this weekend. State Cup is an invite-only event for referees. You get that letter. I will always remember. I went to the Canton Cup, and it always takes place Memorial Day weekend. It's one of the largest tournaments in Michigan, it was like a breeding ground, so to speak, for young referees to go showcase their talents, and at that time be selected to maybe be part of State Cup. That was like a way that they were able. Some of these larger tournaments, that was the way to get noticed as a referee. And to be fair, I didn't know much about it. I didn't know much about all this. I just knew I wanted to go to the Canton Cup, and it was really kind of a cool experience. And I remember, after going to that tournament, a few weeks later in the mail, I get this letter. Now, I'm sure they get the email comes in now versus a snail mail, but I got this letter in the mail, and it said, "Congratulations, you've been invited to State Cup. You're going to stay in a hotel room in Saginaw, Michigan, and you're going to be, blah blah blah." I mean, it was awesome, awesome experience to be a part of. Going there and staying in the hotel and having dinner with your fellow referees, having conversations and education and learning about the game of soccer at a new level was something that I will never forget as a young referee. And we're going to capture that this weekend on video. We're going to go up there with our cameras, and we're going to follow referees around. We're going to ask them questions, interview them, and really get a clear understanding of what it's like to be a referee in 2022. And we're excited about that. I'm excited about bringing that to the network and really helping with educating and recruiting young officials here on the network. We also talked about a call of the week, which is going to be coming here very soon. It's going to be where we take a look at the calls that have happened right here on the network, where referees, the decisions that they have made in those games, will be evaluated by the Michigan Referee Committee to give you the insight into why those calls, with the interpretation and the application of the laws in the moment of those games. So that'll be coming here very, very soon here to the network. There's a couple more comments coming in here. Parents are scaring off all refs, killing young refs potentially by screaming about offsides calls at a U8 game. Parents got to chill and stop thinking of their children or D1 athletes. Canton Cup is amazing, one of the great Michigan soccer competitions around. Agree with all three of those, Danny Garrett. So yes, I would agree with everything you just said in those comments. But I also think that it's something to be said too, that as we go down this path with the Michigan Referee Committee, our goal obviously is to help them grow, their current referee shortage, right? I think they said once upon a time they had close to 6,000 referees. Now we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 registered referees all across the state of Michigan. It's not enough, right? There are games all across this area that are not getting referees because of the shortages. But as we go down this path with this, with the Michigan Referee Committee, we want to make sure that we also understand that referees, even though they're human beings and they do make mistakes, right? That it is okay for us to look at those mistakes and say, how do we get better, right? And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this too, is that there is an accountability part of this, right? There are times, not saying that parents are right, because that's not the right message, right? Because you're not. Parents, you're never right, okay? But there are times where in a game, in a moment, there's a misapplication of a law. There is an opportunity where a referee, maybe due to positioning, whatever the case might be, missed a crucial moment in a game. And it's okay that as I would say, fans of the game, that our goal is to find a way to get it right, so that the next time you're out at a game, you can get it right. I was always, one of my mentors always said to me, you're only as good as your last game. So, and I took that to heart, and that meant that, hey, if my last game was crap, then I was going to have to find a way to, make it better. But anyways, I'm really excited about this partnership and what we're bringing to the table. And I know that with this new relationship, a lot of positives will come out here for officials here across the state of Michigan.
Yeah, when we talked about the growth of soccer, if you look back 20, 30 years ago, are there more teams at every single level? Absolutely. Even though we've had some clubs swallow up some smaller clubs, there's over 100 clubs in the state of Michigan. We have amateur teams, semi-pro teams, pro teams. Like I said earlier, 500 plus high school teams. We have all these MLS academy teams and girls academy teams. There's so many teams in different leagues and different levels around the state. So, yeah, I think there is a shortage of officials, but there is a quick remedy. We just need more young blood to get involved.
Yeah, and Danny makes up a good point. missed calls are part of the game. It's true. Hey, mistakes happen, right? I mean, I think there's a study that was once done that said that, the average official, at the higher levels, gets about 85% of their calls right, something like that. So, there's clearly opportunities for referees to get better. There are clearly opportunities for referees to improve, and all of that. But as Danny said, yeah, you gotta, there's going to be moments where you get it wrong, and it's just part of the game. And I think what's happened, and I think what's happening in our society is that we as a parent, I want someone to yell at, right? If my child is being hurt, or hurt for that matter, my only thing I can really use is my voice. I'm not going to go out and tackle somebody. I'm not that person, right? So a lot of it comes down to protecting our children. And while there are a lot of parents out there that I think are misguided in regard to what protection really means, I understand it from a parent standpoint why if a player is getting attacked by another player on the pitch, there might be some screaming and yelling that takes place in regards to that. There's a right way and a wrong way to do things. There's, hey, if you want to voice and say, hey, come on, ref, and then be done with it, so be it. But you just can't keep doing what we're doing, right? And again, understanding that referees are human beings, and a lot of these referees are newer to the game, especially at the younger age groups, where it's terrible at U8, U9, U10. It's not a fun environment to be a part of.
You have a high school kid officiating a U7 game, and the parents are going ballistic, screaming at him. Doesn't leave much of an impression for a 16-year-old kid to want to come back and do this later in life.
Yeah, Danny says I blame VAR and instant replay. See, I don't know. Instant replay has been a part of sports for a long time. I mean, VAR, to be fair, I think VAR is good for the game, especially the professional levels. I'm not saying that it's perfect, right? Because I don't think there's any system that's perfect. And I think that VAR is going to continue to evolve and continue to get better. At least that's the hope, right? I mean, I remember when they first started putting challenges out for NFL, it was atrocious. It was terrible. Now it's still terrible, but it's less terrible, right? I mean, it's like less terrible. I think with just time and doing more of it, I think that it will just improve and get better. But I don't blame VAR for how parents have been this way since I was a ref, and that was 20 years ago. So I just think that parents want to have a voice, and what we want to be able to do here at the Michigan Soccer Network is give them a platform to have that voice.
Yeah, so, I mean, when I grew up playing soccer, and yes, I'm old. I started playing youth soccer in 1978, and I played high school in the late 80s. You still saw it back then. You saw the call it both ways. How many soccer and basketball and volleyball games and stuff have you sat through in your life, and you turn around and there's that one parent yelling the same old stuff? That's always going to happen, but hopefully we can resolve this issue in terms of officials. Again, not just in soccer, because there is a desperate need in just about every sport across the board. We need people to look past that, and just take it with a grain of salt. There's always going to be a fan in the stand. It's going to ridicule. They're going to question every call you make. So, what is it? Something that's going to be a quick fix? I mean, hopefully they can beef up the numbers in the next year or two. But
yeah, I'm hoping that with the things that we're doing here at the network, along with our things that we're doing in collaboration with the Michigan Referee Committee, will help fill that void. And we also have to do our job as fans of the game and viewers and parents, which is, unfortunately, I keep saying it, I'll continue to say it, there's not been a moment in the history of my life where a screaming parent or coach or player has ever changed or dictated the outcome of a call. It might actually make you go the opposite way, right? Where maybe they're so annoyed with you they make more calls against you. So I would encourage you all to just chill. That'd be my message. But Dan, we're about to get out of here, man. Any final thoughts?
No, it's just looking forward to a lot of soccer, especially at the high school and college level. They got high school tournaments starting in less than a month. college soccer, you know, at all levels, is they're knee deep in their conference plays, men's and women's soccer. It's a special time of year, especially when we get towards the state tournaments and national tournaments for college soccer.
Yeah.
It's just around the corner.
Just around the corner. Don't forget, tomorrow night coming up here at 7 p.m. Eastern, we'll be out at Salem, not Plymouth-Salem, but Salem versus Canton in that rivalry matchup. Kickoff at 7 p.m. live right here on the Michigan Soccer Network. And then on Thursday night, we're back at it at Troy Athens, number 8 ranked Troy Athens, as they welcome a number 2 ranked Troy High in their rivalry game. It'll be attempt number 2 to bring you that game. We'll see how that goes.
Hopefully Mother Nature wasn't invited to this clash.
Hopefully not, as we're excited to bring you that action here on a Thursday night. Kickoff again at 7 p.m. We appreciate you tuning in here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like us. Follow all of our advertisers. Again, Catholic League Finals coming up here in 2 weeks. I think it's actually a week from Wednesday.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's 10 days away is the Catholic League Finals. 2 games brought to you right here on the Michigan Soccer Network. So we're excited to bring those to you as well. But without further ado, that's all I've got. So from all of us here at the Michigan Soccer Network, we appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow for more soccer.